Oh no, what am I doing here? Why am I in a stranger's bed on the day of my wedding?
Hyunwoo.
It's not what you think, please, I can explain. I don't know how I got here, don't walk away.
What would you do if you woke up on the morning of your wedding, in a stranger's hotel bed? No memory, no explanation, just the scent of someone you don't recognize on the sheets beside you. And what if your fiancé walked in at that exact moment and didn't stay long enough to hear you say I was drugged? What if, 3 weeks later, he proposed to your stepsister? That's not a nightmare. That's Ðrûgğ's life. And this is where her story begins. And by the time this story ends, you will understand exactly what it means to be betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you the most. Stay with me. Because this is the kind of story that changes you. And if this moved you even a little, subscribe. More stories like this are already on the way. Tell me where you're watching from. Zara had met Hyunwoo Young at a conference in Seoul. Charming, attentive, the kind of man who made you believe in permanence. They built something real, or so she thought. He proposed at the Han River at sunset. She said yes without hesitation. The wedding was set for April. 3 weeks before the ceremony, Zara went to her bachelorette dinner. She remembered champagne. She remembered music. She remembered a text she assumed from Hyunwoo telling her to come to a hotel room at the Belton in Itaewon. She woke up the next morning not knowing where she was, not knowing how she got there, with a man beside her whose face she never saw clearly. Only a scent, strong, unfamiliar. Hyunwoo arrived that morning, called there by someone, and what he saw ended everything. He didn't ask questions. He didn't fight for her. He simply left. The engagement was over. And 3 weeks later, he proposed to Naomi. Zara didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She packed one bag, booked a flight from Gwangju to Seoul, and built a completely new life alone, on her own terms, in a city that owed her nothing. She became a brand strategist. She became excellent. She became the version of herself that had no room for betrayal because she had no room for the people who committed it. That was her plan. Until her father called about his 60th birthday. It was a Tuesday morning when her father called. Zara was in the middle of a presentation review, coffee going cold on her desk, reading glasses on her nose, when her phone lit up with a number she almost let ring out. Abionim. That was what she had started calling him in Korean, half as a joke, half as a way to soften the distance. She stepped out into the hallway. Zaria, his voice was warm, careful, the way fathers sound when they're about to ask for something they're not sure you'll give. Hey, Dad. You picked up, I'm glad. I always pick up. She didn't, but she said it anyway. Your birthday is coming up, she said. The big 6-0. That's actually why I'm calling. A pause. I want everyone together, the whole family, here in Gwangju at the house. Gwangju. Her father had relocated to Korea 6 years ago, a retired civil engineer who'd fallen in love with the country during a work project and never quite gone home. He'd married his Korean wife's memory into the house he bought there, filled it with photographs and ceramic pottery, and a garden he tended every morning. It was a beautiful house. It was also the house where Naomi lived when she visited. Dad, Zara started. I know, he said quietly. It's just complicated. I know, but you're still my firstborn, and I miss you. And I'm turning 60, Zara. I want my family around me. The silence between them was heavy with everything she hadn't said in years. She thought about Hyunwoo, about the engagement that had shattered like glass on a marble floor, about Naomi-S face at the funeral of Zara-S relationship, composed, sympathetic, already calculating the angle of her next move. I'll try, Zara said finally. That's all I need. She hung up and stood in that hallway for a long moment, listening to the hum of the city below. Going back, she thought, always costs you something. The question was whether this time she had anything left to pay with. Her best friend was a woman named Soyeon. Kim Soyeon had the energy of 3 espresso shots and the emotional intelligence of a trained therapist, which was exactly the kind of combination Zara needed in her corner. They had met in a Korean language exchange program 6 years ago, Soyeon trying to improve her English, Zara desperately trying to stop conjugating verbs in the wrong tense, and they had been inseparable ever since. That evening, over tteokbokki and beer at their usual pajangmatcha near Hongdae, Zara told Soyeon about the phone call. "You have to go," Soyeon said immediately. "I know. But you're not going alone." "What?" Soyeon pointed a chopstick at her. "Think about it. Hyunwoo will be there." Zara quotes jaw tightened. "And Naomi will be there, looking perfect, holding his hand, wearing the future that was supposed to be yours." "I appreciate you being thorough," Zara said flatly. "So you need backup," Soyeon leaned forward. "You need to walk in there with a man." "A man?" "A handsome one, successful, someone who makes Hyunwoo regret every single life choice that led him to your stepsister." Zara stared at her. "You're joking." "I'm absolutely not." "Soyeon, where am I going to get a fake boyfriend in?" "You could rent one." The words landed like a drop tray. "Excuse me." "It's a thing, it's a real service. I have a friend who—" "No," Zara held up a hand. "Absolutely not, I am not." "Okay, fine. Then what about going with someone real? Someone you actually know?" Zara opened her mouth, closed it. There was someone. His name was Marcus Kwon. He was her colleague, technically. Fluent in 3 languages, with the kind of quiet confidence that made a room shift when he walked into it. He was kind. Funny in a dry, understated way that snuck up on you. He had started at her firm 8 months ago, and they had been dancing around a friendship that kept threatening to become something more. She had never let it cross that line. Because the last time she had trusted that feeling, she had ended up standing in a hotel lobby in Busan, with her engagement ring in her hand and her world on fire. "There's someone from work," she said carefully. Soyeon Quotes' eyes lit up like a skyline. "He's just a colleague." "Does he know that?" Zara chose not to answer that. "Just ask him," Soyeon said simply. "Worst he says is no." Zara looked out at the street, at the neon signs reflecting in the wet pavement, at the couples walking hand in hand under the fall leaves. She missed being one half of something. She was so tired of being alone in a city full of people. "Fine," she said quietly. "I'll ask." She almost didn't ask. She rehearsed it for 3 days, deleted 4 different texts, wrote a whole script in her head, and then forgot it the moment she walked past his desk. In the end, she asked him the way you ask for the most important things, quickly, before your courage runs out. "Marcus, I need a favor." He looked up from his laptop. He had the kind of eyes that paid attention. That was one of the things she had noticed first about him. He actually looked at you when you spoke. "My dad's birthday is this weekend, in Gwangju. My ex-fiancé is going to be there with my stepsister, and I cannot—" She stopped, reset. "I know this is a lot to ask, but I need someone to come with me, and I don't have anyone else." A beat of silence. "When do we leave?" he said. She blinked, just like that. Just like that. A hint of a smile. "I could use a change of scenery, and family drama sounds interesting." "You're going to regret saying that." "Probably." He closed his laptop. "What's the cover story?" She hesitated. "Dating, seriously dating, enough that meeting my family makes sense." He nodded slowly, like he was turning something over in his mind, like the idea wasn't entirely unwelcome. "Okay," he said, "but I want the real story, everything, on the drive down." She swallowed. "Everything is a lot." "I'm a good listener." She looked at him for a moment, really looked at him, and felt something loosen in her chest. Something she had kept clenched for a very long time. "Okay," she said, "everything." It was a 3-hour drive from Seoul. The Hanam Expressway cuts through mountains and rice paddies, through small towns where the buildings get shorter and the skis get wider. And if you take it in October, the ridgelines are every shade of red and amber you've ever dreamed of. Marcus drove. Zara sat in the passenger seat with her feet tucked under her and told him the truth. All of it. She told him about her mother dying, about Patricia moving in with her quiet poison and her loud favoritism, about Naomi, beautiful, strategic Naomi, who had learned early that the best way to win was to make Zara lose. She told him about Hyunwoo Young. She had met Hyunwoo at a design conference in Seoul 3 years ago. He was charming in the way Korean men from good families can be, confident, attentive, just modern enough to appreciate a woman who didn't shrink herself. They fell in love fast and hard. He proposed at the Han River at sunset with a ring that caught the light like a promise. The wedding was supposed to be in April. It never happened. 3 weeks before the ceremony, Zara went to a bachelorette dinner with her friends. She remembered champagne. She remembered music. She remembered a text arriving late in the evening, she thought from Hyunwoo, saying to come to the room at the Belton Hotel in Itaewon. She woke up the next morning. She was not alone. She didn't know the man beside her. She only knew the scent, strong, expensive, unfamiliar, and the disorientation that comes not from sleep but from something far more sinister. She had been drugged. She knew it in her bones before she even had the words for it. And when Hyunwoo arrived at the room that morning, called there by someone, she would later realize, who wanted him to see exactly what he saw. He looked at her with a disgust that she had never seen on his face before and would never unsee. He ended the engagement on the spot. He didn't listen. He didn't want to. And 3 weeks later, she found out through a mutual friend that he had moved on. With Naomi. Your stepsister, Marcus said. His voice was quiet, controlled, but something underneath it was not. My stepsister, Zara confirmed. He didn't speak for a long time. The mountains passed. A hawk wheeled slowly above a field. I'm sorry, he said finally. That's not a word that's enough, but I mean it. What happened to you was cruel and deliberate. She looked at her hands. I've never said all of that out loud before. How does it feel? She thought about it honestly, like putting down something very heavy. He nodded. Good, leave it on the road. You don't need to carry it into that house. She turned to look at him, the line of his jaw, the steadiness of his hands on the wheel, and thought, who is this man? And why does he feel so much like safety? She didn't say that out loud, but she filed it somewhere careful. Her father's house in Gwangju was exactly as she remembered it. A traditional-style home with a modern interior, surrounded by a garden her father had coaxed into extraordinary life. Persimmon trees hung heavy with orange fruit. Stone lanterns lined the path to the front door. It should have felt like coming home. It would have, if not for the car in the driveway. Hyunwoo's car. Zara recognized it before she even registered the license plate. She had sat in that car 100 times. She had fallen asleep in the passenger seat of that car on a late-night drive back from Busan. She had laughed in that car until her stomach hurt. She stopped walking. Marcus stepped up quietly beside her, not touching her, just close. Still want to do this, he said. If I leave now, she wins. Then let's go. They walked in together. The first person to greet them at the door was her father's housekeeper, a warm woman named Ajung who had known Zara since she first started visiting. Then her father himself appeared from the hallway, silver-haired and bright-eyed, and Zara felt the complicated love she had for him flood back all at once. The love and the grief of it, the wishing he had been braver when it mattered. Zarya, he held her face in his hands. You're here. I'm here, Dad. And this is, he looked at Marcus with genuine curiosity. Marcus, Zara said. She felt the word almost catch. My fiancé. Silence. Then her father smiled, wide and real, and with a relief she hadn't expected. Come in, come in. And then, from the kitchen doorway, Naomi appeared. She was beautiful. She had always been beautiful. High cheekbones, a carefully curated naturalness, a smile that never quite reached her eyes but always reached its target. She looked at Marcus. Something flickered behind her eyes. Recognition, uncertainty, Zara couldn't tell. Zara, Naomi said, her voice smooth as river stone. Wow, you look. A pause perfectly calibrated to wound different. So do you, Zara said pleasantly. Marriage agrees with you. A slight tightening around Naomi's eyes. We're not married yet. Oh, my mistake. Marcus put his hand at the small of Zara's back. Just that. Nothing theatrical, but the effect was immediate, an anchor, a signal, a message in a language Naomi understood exactly. Marcus, Naomi said, extending her hand. Have we met? I don't think so, he said calmly. You look really familiar. I get that a lot. He smiled, pleasantly, completely, a smile that gave nothing away. And Zara thought, there is more to this man than I know. She filed that too. The dinner that evening started the way family dinners do, when everyone is performing peace. Carefully, Zara's father sat at the head of the table. His longtime girlfriend, a kind Korean woman named Soon-hee, sat beside him. On the other side, Naomi, radiant and watchful, with Hyunwoo beside her looking slightly uncomfortable in a way he was clearly trying to mask with excellent posture. And across from them, Zara and Marcus. The conversation moved through safe territories at first. Her father's health, the garden, Gwangju in autumn. And then Soon-hee, innocently, asked Hyunwoo about work. Oh, things are good, Hyunwoo said. Really good, actually. We're in final negotiations with a major logistics company, TM Group. It's been months of work, but we're almost there. Marcus picked up his chopsticks. He didn't react. But Zara felt him become very still. TM Group, she said, watching him from the corner of her eye. That's impressive. It is, Hyunwoo said, with the mild preening of a man who wants credit without appearing to want it. We're just waiting to meet the CEO. They've been vetting us for 5 months. Who's the CEO? Naomi asked. Hyunwoo named the company. He named the position. He described the contract. And then he looked across the table at Marcus, at this man who had arrived with Zara, this stranger in his space, and something passed through his face. A wariness, a recalibration. What do you do, Marcus? He asked. Between things currently, Marcus said simply. Job market's been rough. Hyunwoo relaxed, visibly. Zara noticed. She noticed everything. She also noticed, later that night when she was alone with Marcus in the guest courtyard under a sky full of cold autumn stars, the way he held his phone at a careful angle as he texted someone. The way his voice changed just slightly when he spoke to his assistant on the phone, direct, precise, authoritative. Marcus. He looked at her. What do you actually do? A pause. I told you, Don't, she met his eyes. I'm asking for real. The silence between them stretched out like the night. And then something in him settled, like a man deciding, finally, to put down a weight he'd been carrying unnecessarily. I'm the CEO of TM Group, he said quietly. I took over from my father 8 months ago. She stared at him. The company, Hyunwoo, has been trying to get a contract from for 5 months. Yes. And you came here with me and sat across from him at dinner and said nothing. I came here because you asked me to. That's the only reason I came. His voice was steady, direct. The contract has nothing to do with you and me. I make my decisions on merit, not on relationships. Does he know? No. When did you decide not to tell him? The moment he walked in and I saw how he looked at you. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. Like you were a mistake, like you were something he'd correctly discarded. A pause. I know men like him. Zara's chest was doing something complicated. You lied to me, she said, by omission. I did. He didn't soften it. And I'm sorry, genuinely. You asked me for honesty and I gave you half of it. Why? Because I didn't know how to explain it without it seeming like I had an agenda. And I don't. The only agenda I have with you, Zara, is the one you already know about. She looked at him. And what agenda is that? The stars were cold and bright above them. The persimmon tree moved quietly in the night wind. I like you, he said, simply, without performance. I've liked you for months, not because of your father or Hyunwoo or any contract. Because of you, because of the way you think, because of the way you walk into a room and make people want to be better, because of the way you pretend you don't need anyone when you clearly need everyone. A breath. And that terrifies you, I know that. I'm not asking you to stop being terrified. I'm just asking you to let me be here. Properly. Honestly. Zara looked away. The garden was silver in the moonlight. I was set up, she said, finally. The night I was drugged, the night my engagement fell apart. She turned back to him. Someone planned it. Someone who wanted Hyunwoo for themselves. Someone who needed me out of the way. She watched his face carefully. I know, he said. She frowned. What do you mean, you know? The hotel, he said. Belton Hotel, Itaewon, about a year ago. The air between them changed temperature. You were there, she whispered. He nodded slowly, the weight of it visible on him. I had a client dinner, a night that got very strange very fast. Someone I trusted, an associate, handed me a drink. I woke up the next morning in a hotel room I didn't remember going to. He looked at her directly. There was a woman, I couldn't see her face clearly. I left immediately. I've regretted the way I left for a year. The silence was absolute. Marcus, she said. I think, he said carefully, that we were both put in that room, together, by someone who wanted your relationship destroyed and didn't much care about the collateral damage. Zara felt the pieces shift, lock into place, a picture assembling itself from fragments she had been carrying separately for a year. She thought about Naomi. About Naomi's face at dinner tonight, that flicker of recognition when she saw Marcus, the way she'd asked have we met with just slightly too much precision. About the timing, about who benefited, about a year of grief that suddenly had a clear author. Her hands were shaking slightly. Marcus reached out and covered them with his. You don't have to figure it out tonight, he said quietly. But I already have, she said. The next morning arrived gray and clean, the way Gwangju mornings do in autumn, with mist sitting low in the valley and the smell of doenjang jade jiggy drifting from the kitchen. Zara didn't go down to breakfast. She sat on the small balcony of her room and thought. She thought about Naomi, not with rage, not yet, but with the careful archaeology of someone revisiting a landscape they had always misread. She thought about the years of small cruelties, Naomi borrowing things without returning them, Naomi mentioning Zara's weaknesses in front of people who mattered, Naomi arriving at the edges of Zara's relationships like whether present, ambient, impossible to pin down. She thought about the bachelorette dinner, about the text that had arrived on her phone that night, a text she had assumed was from Hyunwoo. She had never checked. She had assumed. And someone had known she would assume. Naomi had known. Downstairs, she could hear voices, her father's laugh, the clatter of dishes, the performance of family. She went down. Naomi was in the living room when Zara found her, alone, scrolling through her phone with a studied casualness that told Zara she had been waiting. Sleep well, Naomi asked. Fine, Zara sat down across from her. Can I ask you something? Of course, Naomi's smile was perfect. We're sisters. The Belton Hotel, Zara said, a year ago. Naomi's smile didn't change, but her thumb stopped moving on her phone screen, just for a moment. What about it? You were in Itaewon that weekend. Was I? I travel so much I lose track. You were, I have a photograph. She didn't, but she watched Naomi's face. And I know about the text, the one sent from a number that looked like Hyunwoo's but wasn't. She kept her voice level, calm, clinical. I know what you did. The mask cracked. Just slightly, just around the eyes. Zara, Naomi's voice shifted less smooth, more careful. You were already having problems with Hyunwoo, you know that. We weren't. You were always too sensitive, too needy. He needed someone. Don't. Zara's voice was soft, but it landed like stone. Don't dress it up. What you did was deliberate and vicious, and it worked. You got what you wanted. You got him. She looked at her stepsister. Was it worth it? Naomi held her gaze for a long moment. Something moved through her face, not guilt exactly, but the ghost of it. The shape of something that might have been a conscience before she trained it away. He's happy now, Naomi said. I wasn't asking about him. Silence. I'm asking if you're happy, because from where I'm sitting, you spent a year engineering a future you had to steal, and that man you stole it with, she paused. He's been lying to you. Naomi's eyes narrowed. Ask him about TM Group, Zara said simply. Ask him about the contract he's been chasing. And then ask yourself if a man who performs that hard for a room full of people he wants to impress is actually capable of the kind of love you think you have. She stood up. I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I'm telling you this because despite everything, your mother raised you and my father loves you, and I think somewhere under all of this, there's a version of you that knows exactly what you've done. She looked at her steadily. I'm done fighting with you, Naomi. I've been done. But I needed you to know that I know, and that I'm not carrying your guilt anymore. It's yours. Take it. She walked out of the room. Her hands were steady. Her heart was not. But for the first time in a year, she felt clean. The conversation came later, in the garden. Hyunwoo found her by the persimmon tree, which was exactly the kind of setting that would have felt romantic in another life, and now just felt absurd. Zara. She turned. He was in a navy coat, collar up against the morning chill, looking, she had to admit, like someone who had maintained his fitness out of stress. He looked tired underneath the polish. Hyunwoo. Can we talk? We seem to already be talking. He stepped closer. She held her ground. I know you're with someone new, he said. Marcus seems. He's remarkable, she said simply. A shadow crossed Hyunwoo's face. I wanted to apologize, he said, for the way everything happened. The way everything happened, she repeated. That's one way to phrase it. I was hurt, and I reacted. You didn't listen, she said. I told you what happened. I told you I was drugged. I told you I had no idea where I was or what had occurred. And you decided that it was easier to believe the worst of me than to fight for the truth. She paused. And then you went straight to my stepsister. He looked down. It wasn't straight away. Hyunwoo, she studied him. I'm not interested in your timeline. I'm interested in telling you something important because despite everything you put me through, I don't wish you harm. A breath. Your company is trying to get a contract from TM Group. He stiffened. I know who the CEO is, she said. You should speak to him directly, honestly, on the merits of your proposal. She held his gaze. And I want you to understand whatever he decides, it has nothing to do with me and nothing to do with what happened between us. I'm not asking him to help you. I'm not asking him to hurt you. That's not who I am. He stared at her. Why are you telling me this? She thought about it honestly. Because I spent a year hatting you, she said. And it was exhausting, and I have better things to do with my energy now. She turned and walked back toward the house. Behind her, she heard him say her name once more. She didn't turn around. Her father's birthday celebration was held that afternoon, in the garden, with lanterns strung between the trees and Soon-hee's exceptional cooking spread across 3 tables. Neighbors came, old colleagues of her father's, a few of his friends from the local community center where he played badminton every Saturday. Zara stood beside Marcus and watched her father move through the crowd. This man she loved and complicated and could not stop forgiving, and she felt the familiar ache of it. The love you carry for a parent who didn't protect you the way they should have, and the understanding, arrived at slowly and painfully, that they were always doing the best they could with what they had. It was not an excuse. It was just a truth. Her father found her mid-afternoon, when the light was golden and the laughter was loud, and Marcus had been pulled into a conversation with 2 of her father's friends, who had discovered he was half Korean, and wanted to interrogate him about which region his family was from. Zara, her father stood beside her, holding a glass of plum wine. I have to ask you something. Okay. Is he good to you? She looked at Marcus across the garden, at the way he laughed genuinely at something the older man said, at the way he listened when people spoke, at the way his eyes found her across the crowd and held her gaze for just a moment. A quiet checking in, an "are you okay?" A warmth she didn't know how to receive yet but was learning to stop refusing. "He's very good to me," she said. Her father nodded slowly. "Your mother would have liked him." Zara's throat tightened. "I need to tell you something, Dad." She turned to face him. "About Hyunwoo, about the real reason the engagement ended." His face became careful. "I was drugged," she said. "The night before you heard what you heard, someone drugged me, set me up." She watched his face. "It was deliberate, and I think you know or suspected who would have done something like that." A long silence. Her father looked at his plum wine, at the garden, at the lanterns beginning to glow as the afternoon shifted toward evening. "I'm sorry," he said. "For which part?" "All of it." His voice was rough. "For not fighting for you, for being so." He stopped. "Patricia, she always had a way of making me feel like the problem was you, like you were too dramatic, too sensitive." He shook his head. "And I believed her because it was easier, because I was a coward." He looked at her directly for the first time in years, really looked. "You deserved better from me. You have always deserved better." Zara felt the tears arrive before she could stop them. She had waited a long time to hear those words. She had almost given up on hearing them. "I love you, Dad," she said. "I love you too, my girl, more than I've ever shown you, and I'm going to spend whatever time I have left making that clear." He put his arm around her. "Okay. Okay." The lanterns were golden in the dusk. The persimmon tree stood patient and full of fruit. And Zara leaned into her father's shoulder and let herself be, for just a moment, a daughter who was loved. The unraveling came, as unravelings do, at the worst possible moment. Naomi had been quiet all afternoon, watchful, the specific quiet of a woman rearranging something inside herself. And then, as the birthday toasts began, her father standing at the head of the garden, glass raised, face luminous with happiness, Naomi spoke. She spoke with the precision of someone who had been saving a weapon for exactly the right moment. "Before we toast," she said, stepping forward with a smile that didn't belong at a birthday celebration, "I think everyone should know something about Zara's fiancé." The garden went still. Zara's blood ran cold. "He's not unemployed," Naomi said. "He's the CEO of TM Group, the company Hyunwoo's been negotiating with for 5 months. She looked around the gathering with performed concern. "I just think it's important to be transparent, especially at a family celebration, especially when someone's using a relationship as a business strategy." The silence was enormous. Every face turned. Toward Zara, toward Marcus. And then, from across the garden, Marcus's voice, calm and clear. "That's accurate." Naomi blinked. "I am the CEO of TM Group." He moved to stand beside Zara, unhurried. "I have been for 8 months. I didn't announce it when I arrived because I wasn't here on business. I was here because Zara asked me to support her, and there is nowhere I would rather be." He looked at Naomi directly. "I've been transparent with Zara about all of this. And for the record, whatever decision TM Group makes about Hyunwoo's proposal will be based entirely on the proposal's merit, not on tonight. Not on this family." He turned to Zara's father. "Sir, happy birthday. I'm sorry your celebration has been interrupted by someone else's agenda." The gathered guests exchanged glances. Hyunwoo had gone very still. Naomi's composure had fractured, just slightly, just enough. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes were bright with something that was not triumph. It was the look of a woman who had played her card and watched it land wrong. And then something remarkable happened. Zara's father set down his glass. "Naomi," he said quietly, "that's enough." 3 words. The quietest authority Zara had ever heard from him. Naomi opened her mouth. "I said that's enough." He looked at his daughter, his other daughter, the one he had let claim too much for too long, with a sorrow that was honest and overdue. "I have tolerated a great deal in this family. I have looked away when I should have looked directly, but not today, not in my own garden." He straightened. Zara is my daughter. She is welcome here. She is loved here. And anyone who cannot treat her with the dignity she deserves is welcome to leave. The garden was very quiet. Naomi turned and walked into the house. Nobody stopped her. Hyunwoo looked at Zara once, a look she couldn't entirely read, something between apology and recognition, and then followed. Her father lifted his glass. To family, he said, to the ones who stay, to the ones who fight to be here, and to new beginnings. He looked at Zara. To my daughter, welcome home. The guests raised their glasses. And Zara felt something break open in her chest, not painfully, not the way things had been breaking open for the past year, but gently, like a window opening after a long winter, like the first morning of spring. She felt Marcus's hand find hers. She let him hold it. Properly, completely, without pulling away. They stayed one more day. Her father, true to his word, spent most of it with Zara, walking in the garden, sitting in the kitchen while soon he made sikhai, talking the way they hadn't talked in years. Naomi left that evening. She said goodbye to their father with her usual composure, and as she passed Zara in the hallway, she stopped. I know what I did, she said quietly. Zara looked at her. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Naomi's voice was flat, stripped of performance. She stopped, started again. I always wanted what you had, not things, not men, just a breath. The way he looked at you, Dad, the way he always looked at you differently, even when I did everything right, even when I was perfect. Her eyes were bright. I was so angry for so long. I know, Zara said. I made terrible choices. You did. And you're not going to tell me it's okay. No, Zara said. It's not okay. What you did changed my life, hurt me in ways I'm still figuring out, took things from me I can't get back. She paused. But I'm not going to carry your guilt forever. That's the only thing I'm done with. Naomi nodded once. She walked out. The door closed softly behind her. Zara stood in the hallway for a moment. Then she went and found Marcus. He was in the garden, jacket off despite the cold, talking on the phone in a quiet, direct voice. The voice she now recognized, not his casual voice, his professional one. He ended the call when he saw her. Hyunwoo's contract, she said. Have you decided? He looked at her carefully. The proposal is strong, the team is competent, the financials are solid. He paused. We'll work with them. Because the proposal merits it. Because the proposal merits it, nothing else. She nodded. Good. He tilted his head slightly. Does that bother you? She thought about it honestly. A year ago it would have destroyed me. Hyunwoo succeeding at anything would have felt like proof that I was the problem, that he was right to leave me. She looked at the persimmon tree in the fading light. But I'm not that person anymore, or I'm trying not to be. A small, real smile. Besides, I have better things to focus on. He stepped closer. Like what? Like figuring out what we actually are. That seems straightforward to me, he said. Nothing is straightforward with me. I know, he was very close now. I'm aware I'm still here. She looked up at him, at this man who had walked into her professional life and quietly, patiently, without demand or expectation, become necessary. I was in that hotel room, she said softly. The worst night of my life, and so were you, and we didn't know each other, and now, she stopped. And now, he said. It feels like something. It is something. The garden was full of last light. The ginkgo leaves turned gold and fell. She stood on her toes and kissed him. Not frantically, not desperately. The way you kiss someone when you are choosing, consciously, to trust again. When you are deciding that the history of your pain does not get to write the future. When you are ready. He held her like someone who had been waiting for a long time to be allowed to. The drive back to Seoul was different. The mountains were the same. The expressway was the same. But something in the car was new. An ease, a rightness. Zara had her feet tucked under her again, but now she was leaning slightly toward him, and the radio was playing something soft in Korean, and the late afternoon sun was coming through the windshield at the angle that makes everything look like a film. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Always. When you first realized who I was, that I was the woman from the hotel, why didn't you say anything?" A pause. "Because I wasn't sure," he said. "At first, and then," he thought about it carefully, "and then I was sure, and I couldn't find a way to say it that didn't sound insane. Hello, I think I was drugged alongside you a year ago, sorry about that." A wry look. "The moment was never right. The moment on the Han River was right, when you told me about your feelings." "I know," he exhaled. "I was scared. That if I told you, you'd run, and I needed you to know me first. To know that I wasn't," he paused. "I wasn't the man who did that to you. I was a victim of the same night. But how do you explain that without sounding like you're making excuses?" She thought about it. "You tell the truth," she said. "Even when it's imperfect, even when there's no good moment, you just say it." "I know that now." "Good." A pause. "Don't do it again." "Withhold something from you." "Yes." "Deal." The city began to appear on the horizon, the skyline of Seoul rising out of the dusk. Thousands of lit windows, millions of lives happening simultaneously, the vast, ordinary, beautiful miracle of a city at night. "I love this city," Zara said quietly. "Yeah. I used to feel like a guest here, like I was borrowing it and one day someone would notice and ask me to leave." She looked at the skyline. "I don't feel that way anymore." "What do you feel?" She smiled slowly. "Like I belong somewhere, for the first time in a very long time." Marcus said nothing. He reached across and found her hand. Held it. And they drove into Seoul like that, together, unhurried, toward something neither of them could fully name yet, but both of them were, finally, willing to reach for. The contract between TM Group and Hyunwoo's firm was signed in December. It was, by all accounts, a professionally managed agreement. No personal involvement, no drama, the kind of clean business outcome that both parties could feel good about. Zara heard about it through industry news, the way she heard about most things that no longer belonged to her life. She closed the article and went back to her work. She and Marcus had stopped pretending about their relationship by November. They had told people, colleagues, friends, her father, with the casual honesty of people who had stopped performing anything and started simply being. Soyeon, predictably, claimed full credit. "I told you to get a man," she said triumphantly, over tteokbokki at their usual pajangmatcha. "You told me to rent a man. And look how well the real one turned out." Zara laughed. That sound again, the one that filled rooms. She had missed it. She called her father every Sunday now. Sometimes they talked for 5 minutes, sometimes for an hour. He was learning to see her clearly, and she was learning to let him, and it was slow and imperfect and worth it. She never heard from Naomi. She thought about her sometimes, not with anger, not with triumph, but with the complex sadness you feel for someone who chose a path that led them away from themselves. She hoped, quietly and without expectation, that Naomi would one day look at her own reflection and recognize the cost of what she had built. She hoped. Nothing more. As for the night at the Belton Hotel, the investigation she and Marcus had quietly conducted together, with the help of a discreet attorney, they had enough to understand what had happened, who had been involved, and why. Whether they pursued it formally was a conversation they were still having. Some wounds, Zara was learning, don't need a courtroom to heal. Some justice is personal. Some you carry forward by refusing to be what they tried to make you. On the first weekend of January, Zara and Marcus walked along the Han River. It was cold, the kind of cold that turns your breath to cloud and makes the city feel quiet and close. The river was steel gray and very still, and the trees along the bank were bare and beautiful, the way things are beautiful when they have nothing left to hide. They walked without talking for a while. This was new, the comfortable silence of two people who have stopped needing to fill every space, who have learned that presence is its own language. I want to tell you something, Zara said. Okay. I spent a long time thinking that what happened to me, the hotel, Hyunwoo, all of it, was a story about what people took from me. She looked at the river. My engagement, my reputation, my sense of safety. A breath. But I've been thinking about it differently lately. He looked at her. It's also the story of how I found out who I actually was. She paused. Under all of it, under the relationship and the grief and the family drama and the fear, who I actually was on my own when there was nothing comfortable left. She turned to face him. And I think I like her, the woman I found. I think she's extraordinary, he said. She smiled. You're biased. Absolutely, he smiled back. Doesn't make it less true. The river moved slowly below them. Seoul hummed and breathed around them. She leaned into him, and he put his arm around her, and they stood there in the cold January morning, two people who had found each other through the strangest, hardest, most unlikely route. Two people who had been placed in the same darkness by someone else's cruelty, and had, somehow, become each other's light. Not because it was easy. Not because they were perfect. But because they had both decided, separately and then together, that they were worth the risk of being known. They say you can't choose the family you're born into. But you can choose who you walk beside when the road gets hard. And sometimes, the person who sees you most clearly is the one who found you in your worst moment. Not by accident. By grace.